All right, man, peace. So, brothers, I have a series that I'm currently doing on my channel that some of you may have seen called The Mama's Boy Problem. And the reason why I started that series was because of the rather inordinate infatuation that the so-called black male has with his mother and vice versa. Why do I feel the need to highlight that? It's because it's very clear to me that the mutual over-infatuation that both parties have with each other is stopping the so-called young black male from assuming the element of kinghood or the ruling class mentality that he's going to need in order to transcend the BS in this society. Brothers, please understand something. The rapport between the woman and her son, particularly from infancy, is probably the strongest bond that we see anywhere in the fleshly world. In nature, whenever you see a mother protecting her child, especially her male child, that is the most ferocious that you'll ever see her. The vast majority of bear attacks in the woods are due to the mother bear believing that her cubs are in danger. And of course, that connection between the fetus and the mother starts in the womb, where they're connected by the umbilical cord. And then when the child is brought forth, the child is suckling on the mother's teats. That also forms a psychological and spiritual connection between the child and the mother. And it resonates even into the educational field. Why do I say that? Because even in the scriptures, the term milk is used as a metaphor for knowledge. Why is that? Because you suckle at the breast of the mother. You gain nourishment. That's where you get the term alma mater from. When you graduate from high school or college and you go back, you refer to it as your alma mater. The term alma mater means nourishing mother. Like the goddess Hathor, she was always depicted as the cow goddess. What was that meant to represent? She is the giver of knowledge. So the point being is this. There's a very thin line between loving your mother and worshiping your mother. And the so-called black man has overstepped that line, and there are a myriad of reasons for that. Number one, this society is governed according to Thelema, is governed according to the veneration of the mother goddess. And therefore, they have taken the so-called black male out of the home. And because so many brothers no longer have a ruling class mentality, they don't know how to reinstate themselves in their rightly place as the head of the woman. But that is the natural state of the man, to be the head of the woman. So it is inordinate to look at the woman as your head, even if she's your mother. When you come of age as a man, you're not supposed to look at your mother as your head. You're supposed to look at her as a loved one who has your best interest at heart. She's more of an advisor than your head. When your mother calls you up and she says, son, I need you to come over and help me with such and such, then you do that, of course. That's your role as a son. You love your mother, you honor her, you respect her, but you don't worship her. Why am I saying all this? Because as we can see here on this panel, you have here Mr. Stephen Jackson, Mr. Ray Lewis. You also have Colin Cowherd, who is the Caucasian man, second from the left. And you have every internet revolutionary's favorite overweight pundit, that being Mr. Jason Whitlock. They're going to talk about Mr. Lamar Jackson, who is an incumbent NFL quarterback out of the University of Louisville, who decided that he's going to make his mother his manager because he does not want to have to give a portion of his money to an agent. The reason why I use this conversation, even though it dates far back, as you can see, the date is February 28th. I haven't had time to make a video about this, but the conversation was so good and so nuanced, I knew that it was going to be something that I would cover because it dealt with a series of issues in the so-called black community regarding the difference between loving your mother and venerating her. It's a major problem. But anyway, they're going to talk about it and I'm going to chime in.
Well, issues of family and money are hardly limited to the NBA. Lamar Jackson arrived at the NFL Combine today, where reportedly he's opted to forego agency representation, instead choosing to be represented by his own mom. Whitlock, I don't think you like this. You think he's going to regret this decision?
Before Whitlock speaks, let me say this. I'm not going to castigate Mr. Lamar Jackson for choosing to make his mother his manager. That is as long as he has a long-range plan to either make sure that his mother is informed and educated on how to properly manage his finances, assuming that she isn't. Who knows? She could have a financial background. If she does, great, keep it in the family. if she doesn't, and you just want to entrust your mother with your finances and with your investment portfolio or what have you, just make sure that she's getting proper schooling so that she does not do you a disservice, because involving your family with money is a very quick way to cause a separation in your relationship. So I hope that he's considering all these things and that he's just not divesting this level of financial power over to her because she's acting as his Lord and Savior, as so many mothers do in this society if left unchecked. So once again, this is a very nuanced discussion, and that's why I always try to convey to brothers the importance of understanding nuance. Any fool can recognize black or recognize white, but can you recognize and understand and distinguish the different shades of gray? That's what it means to be a king. You have to understand discernment.
Yeah, I think that this is an indication that, he's too close to his mom.
Oh, that's a high possibility, especially if he was raised in a household without his mother. And as you can see in the background photo, he is a spitting image of his mother.
And not making, you can be too close. Again,
you absolutely can. And Whitlock is going to, and look, Jason Whitlock is a polarizing force on the internet with many of these little silly woke internet revolutionary Negroes who want to call everybody a coon. And I always address them on my channel because they disgust me. They disgust me. They're like an infestation. They're mad at the world because they're too cowardly to acknowledge or admit or even understand that the reason why they're so upset is because they want the Caucasian man to validate their existence by giving them a hug. That's why everything that occurs in society, they always say, how come I can't do it? The white man does it. It's like a little brother or sister who's upset with their mother or father because their older brother Jimmy gets more favoritism than they do. Sound like a little bitch. That's how a lot of you internet revolutionary black dudes sound. Let me rewind it back a little bit.
I regret this decision.
Yeah, I think that this is...
Look at the brother. He's literally a spitting image of his mother. I can tell that, that their relationship is probably a little bit too close. There may be some Kevin Durant, Wanda Durant vibes going on here.
This is an indication that, he's too close to his mom and not making... Yeah, you can be too close. Again,
I can't never be too close to my mom.
You can be...
I hit you with the Scooby-Doo.
You can be too close to your mom and...
Now you see the two Mama's boys, they're already getting upset. Stephen Jackson and Ray Lewis. Ray Lewis goes to church to try to throw off some of that feminine energy that was imbued upon him by his mom. That's why he got so caught up in football and also in the church. You'll find that many people who have addictive personalities, they can't control what they're addicted to, so they'll try to offset their addiction to one thing by becoming addicted to something else. That's why you hear Ray Lewis, and he has a Messiah complex, Ray Lewis does. He has a Savior complex. He got so caught up in the church and in football to try to fabricate, to try to simulate what he thought he would have gotten from a dad. So he's still missing that. And Stephen Jackson, nothing against the brother Stephen Jackson. He's done very, very well for himself. But anybody who's followed Stephen Jackson's career could tell that he came from a home that was overrun by feminine energy. And no disrespect to the brother Stephen Jackson, but he's gang related too. I know that for a fact. So a lot of times brothers join gangs. That's another reason why brothers join gangs, is to try to offset a lot of the feminine energy that they were subjected to as a child.
And not step up as a full-grown man and take control of your situation. It happens all the time. It's an issue in our community.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Whitlock. Let me rewind it back again.
You can be...
I hit you with the Scooby-Doo.
You can be too close to your mom and not step up as a full-grown man and take control of your situation. It happens all the time. It's an issue in our community because a lot of guys grow up without dads and they're so dependent on their mom. He needs better advice.
Hey,
Let me say this before Colin Cowherd speaks. Brothers have to understand something. When you grow up and you become a man and you start to deal in a relationship with a woman, you cannot take to heart what the woman says, because This is why I always try to communicate to brothers that the woman is a two-dimensional thinker. Oftentimes she'll say things to you that she doesn't really mean or even understand. Like they'll talk about how they want a man who loves his mother. But well, that's until they get a mama's boy. Because at the end of the day, there is going to be a push and pull. There is going to be a tug of war between your woman, if she's special to you, and your mother, if you don't know how to moderate both relationships. So you have to show that you are going to preside over the both of them in order for you to have a healthy relationship with the both of them. Because if you allow them, your woman and your mother, they will both on either side of you pull you apart and destroy you if you don't moderate the both of them.
One of the criticisms of Alonzo Ball was like his dad always did the talking for him. I mean, there is some...
Yeah.
Now, if Lonzo had been in the league 10 years, we wouldn't say that. But I've heard more people... I'm not one of them, but I've heard people say, Lonzo's not his own man.
Well, that's very revelatory, Colin Cowherd. The question is, would that have been the case in the liberal media had it been his mother who was dominating him? Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. Who knows? Because they do tend to castigate the Kardashians. But that situation's a little different. Number one, because the Kardashian clan is all women or predominantly women. And they're also non-black, so-called black. So as we know, there's always additional scrutiny on the so-called black man and who is controlling him if it's not a woman.
His dad's doing all the talking. Could I make the argument, dude, you're a quarterback. Can't have your mom representing you.
Well, I'm from the country, and I can't never love my mom enough.
It's not about loving
Looking
her.
at the
Thank you, Jason Whitlock. Did you hear what Jason Whitlock said? He said it's not about loving her. In other words, Jason Whitlock understands the distinction, as I stated, between loving your mom and worshiping her. This brother, Stephen Jackson, worships his mother. And unfortunately, because a lot of these brothers grow up in environments without being subjected to healthy male energy, that's all they know. So many of them don't know what it's like to have missed out on some of the important lessons and a lot of the mental acuity that they would have gotten from being raised in a household with a man who knows how to control himself properly and live his life according to certain ordinances and according to moderation. The woman oftentimes is an extremist because she's so emotional, and that resonates with a lot of these young men today, a lot of these young males today. And once again, Stephen Jackson, fortunately for him, he was able to land a job as an announcer on television, because for those of you who don't know, he was involved in the quote-unquote Malice at the Palace, where he ran up in the stands in Detroit and got into a huge brawl with the audience in the palace at that time, of course, to defend that other nut job, Ron Artest.
At the camera, I love you so much, I can't love you enough, but I'm just saying...
You should tell your mother that you love her every day, and your dad, if you can.
Just saying, like, his mom knows his worth. He knows his worth. At this point, he's coming new to the league.
Would you let your mom represent you as an agent?
You know what? I represent myself.
Would you let your mom, that was your dodging, would you let your mom be your agent?
No, but I would let her handle my money, because that's basically what she's doing. She's not really representing him. She's basically handling his money. He's going to make all the decisions. That's it.
Well, we have to hope that he's going to make some of the decisions, but maybe he doesn't think he's ready to make the decisions. That's why I said this conversation is nuanced, because I'm going to give Lamar Jackson the credit as a man to say that even though he's a young brother, he's probably like 21 years old, that he knows what's best for himself. So I'm going to say, to give him the benefit of the doubt, that he appointed his mother as his manager because he feels like she has his best interests at heart and that she's not going to do him dirty. And I hope that that's how that works. But I also hope that he has his mind on presiding over his own finances, his own estate in the near future. Because until he does that, he's not really a man. He's just a boy looking for his mother to balance out his money so that she can give him an allowance. So he has to be very careful with that. And please understand, the love of money is the root of all evil. I hope that it doesn't change their relationship. But whenever you give someone else the power, when you divest control over your life to someone else, even if it's your mother, that's going to be a big test for her as well as for you.
That's all that really is. But who has your best interest at heart more than your mom?
I would hope so, brother.
Nobody. So if that's the chance,
Doesn't mean she's the best person to handle your money.
Agreed.
You're exactly right. But if I have to take a chance and go out with someone, I'm going to go out with my mama.
I agree with that also. If you have a great mother, you know why he's putting forth that sentiment. But when you say go out with your mama, if you got to go out with somebody, I'm talking about we in an alley and it's just going to be, we're going to go out and we know we're going to die. We're going to take as many people with us. Of course, you want your mama there. You want your dad there. You want whoever else you know going to ride or die with you. But does that make her the best person to handle your finances in the long run? I don't think that she should be his manager in the long run unless she either has financial training or he's sending her to school to get financial training.
That's just real.
You wouldn't let her.
I understand that.
You know what? I'm with Jack on this, because
We know you with Jack, brother. You're another mama's boy.
you know, one of the biggest mistakes I think young players make when we get this type of money or this type of opportunity is the first person we go to trust is an agent that we don't even know.
I agree with that, sir.
We know nothing about them. We know their backgrounds. We know nothing. But we go immediately and say, oh, I'll give you 3%. 3% of what I work for, because what Lamar Jackson is about to get is already signed on the dotted line.
Great point. Wherever Lamar Jackson is going to be drafted, that already has a financial or monetary value attached to it. So there's no need for you to split that money with an agent before the draft. He already knows that he's getting drafted. So wherever he gets drafted, there's going to be a mandatory monetary value attached to that draft status. So he doesn't even need to have an agent until he's already signed. That's if he wants an agent. Because why would you want an agent? Because you would assume that an agent would assist you in getting connections for endorsements, etc. So his mom is going to have to be prepared to do that if she's going to carry on that label or that title. Or maybe he just doesn't want that right now. I'm not quite sure what his plans are.
Wherever he's slotted at, that's what number he's getting. Now, what I would tell him to tread carefully about with his mom is make sure you both understand the business wholeheartedly.
Absolutely.
All the way through. Seek advice.
That's hard, though.
But even if it's hard, Colin, I'm telling you,
Experience is the best teacher.
it's sometimes, sooner or later, we got to change the narrative.
Absolutely. And that's, once again, brothers, this is why I like this conversation so much, because every side was making potent points. And as Ray Lewis is stating here, sooner or later, so-called black people have to change the narrative. Once again, the reason why so many of these woke niggas complain so much is because they're too lazy to put in the work to empower themselves. You empower yourself through knowledge. That's why our people don't have a ruling class mentality, because our people have no knowledge, like it tells you in Hosea 4:6. That's why we get so upset when we go to Starbucks and they say, please buy something, or you're loitering and you have to go. And our people want to make a big deal. Well, a white man's allowed to sit here and that person's allowed to sit there. You keep trying to judge yourself according to these other races when according to you, you're above them. All I hear about from so-called pro-blacks is about melanin and how special we are. Well, if we're more special than everyone else, why should we be expected to be treated the same as them? Of course, we're going to be treated with more scrutiny because we're more special. That's according to your philosophy, if you really believe that. Or maybe you're just talking shit. We have to hold ourselves to a higher standard. That means we must inform ourselves. That's why I stated, if he's going to make his mom his financial advisor or his manager or his agent or whatever, that's cool. Hopefully she has financial training, a background in understanding the monetary system, and if not, send her to school with that initial contract that you're getting so that she can go and get informed and understand how to turn your $1 million into $10 million, and we can just keep it in the family.
Sooner or later, we got to stop making all these agents rich. Man, we're making them filthy rich.
Agreed.
Wealthy.
What's the matter with making Eugene Parker rich?
What you mean? Why not make
For those of you who don't know, Eugene Parker is a black agent.
my mama wealthy?
Same difference.
Same difference. If we all go through the education process together, it's one of the things that I'm starting to teach now in a lot of business about financial literacy, about understanding what your money means for you.
Absolutely.
Not somebody else counting your money and tell you, hey, I think you should do this or I think you should do that. Like, how many guys do not have a structure set up when they start to receive that type of money?
I agree. Listen, moms are great.
They're amazing.
particularly happen to believe I have the.
Did you see what Ray Lewis said? He said they're amazing. Once again, that rapport between the mother and the son is extremely, extremely powerful. Hell, read Genesis the 27th chapter. How Rebekah assisted Jacob in receiving the blessing. That's the power of the mother. But that's a very, very dangerous path that you walk when you don't understand the difference between loving your mother and worshiping her, because that can hamper you from establishing healthy relationships with other people thereafter, because you have to know how to have a healthy rapport with your woman or your women. And if you're constantly being infatuated with your mother is going to stop you from developing those healthy rapports with your women. When my mom speaks to me, she asks me. She doesn't tell me, because she understands that I have the level of wisdom and knowledge needed to make my own decisions. She gives me her perspective. She doesn't give me a declaration.
The greatest one ever invented. So, but as an agent, as a financial advisor, as you know, there's preparation that goes into that. And I'm gonna go real big picture here, because this is, and I wish we had more time to talk about, because this is a black issue.
It's a major issue in the so-called black community, big time.
Black men and their mothers and how we interact. It's a major issue in a positive and there's some negatives or complications to it. But
absolutely, and the reason why you understand that nuance, Mr. Whitlock, is because you were raised with a strong father in your home, and that's the only way that you can understand that. If you've never seen a certain color before, you can't comprehend it until you've seen it.
But I'm gonna ask both of y'all. Y'all ever watch Roots? The TV. Go watch the first episode again and see how we were supposed to be trained as men, go off to manhood training, and come back. And even our mothers answered to us after we went through the manhood training.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely, sir. Let me say this. For those of you who've seen Roots, and I've mentioned this on my channel a very long time ago, Alex Haley was an asset of naval intelligence. And I believe that he was an agent who was sent into the so-called black woke culture of the time, the so-called civil rights culture of the time, to follow around certain assets, certain provocateurs, whoever they may be. He was the person who Malcolm X transcribed his life to. But yes, Alex Haley was an asset of naval intelligence. And Roots was plagiarized. He took that from a Caucasian man named Harold Corlander. The Caucasian man, Harold Corlander, wrote a book called The African. And Alex Haley based his so-called family history of Roots after that book written by Harold Corlander. And then it was optioned into a major television series. Why is that? Because Alex Haley was a plant. Okay? He was a plant who was basically hired to help promote the blacks all come from Africa theory, which was heavily pushed starting in the 60s into the 70s. But that's a whole other video. That's a whole other story for another day. Once again, for those of you out there who may not understand this, the so-called black people of the Americas come from three places. You have the so-called blacks who were Aboriginal already here. You have the so-called blacks who were brought here from the west coast of Africa. And you have the so-called blacks who were sent here from Europe after the huge race wars of the 16 and 1700s. But once again, those are videos for another day.
Right. We're supposed to step up and be the leaders. And instead, we never break that cycle. And
absolutely. Once again, when you become a man, your mother gives you her perspective. She gives you advice. She doesn't tell you, son, here's what you're going to do. And for a lot of males in this society, they're still taking orders from their mother. A lot of women are taking orders from their mothers too. But like I said, I always speak from the man's perspective towards the so-called black man, because he's supposed to be the head. But you have a lot of mama's girls in this society too, quiet as kept.
And mama's leading. I know some people 50 years old, and mama's still the head of them.
I'm not surprised.
We have a cycle.
That's out of respect, though. Yeah.
No, that's not out of respect. That's out of veneration. That's out of veneration. And I know what Whitlock is talking about. Maybe Stephen Jackson doesn't quite comprehend what Whitlock is talking about. But when Whitlock says that the mama is still the head of them, he means that she is dictating things to them. It's not that you understand your mother's place in a high estate in your life. When your mom needs you, you have to be there. When she calls on you, you have to respond. You have to honor your father and your mother. What Whitlock is talking about is worship.
Yeah, that's all. He's changing the narrative.
Aren't there already? Lamar is one of those quarterbacks where half the league's in, half the league's not. It's not like Elway. Right.
Yeah, that's
so there's some questions. Couldn't I argue it kind of adds another question? even if you're right, it's so unique.
It is.
That there's going to be a GM like, I just don't feel good with this.
I agree with that. It may add a component of confusion or doubt in regards to whether a team wants to draft him or not. But it's up to him. Like I've already stated, if he's spoken about this with his mother and they've worked it out, and he says, Mom, I want you to handle my money when I first come into the league, but I also want you to go to school, learn about finance, then cool. If it's a situation where he's a mama's boy and he can't tie his own shoes without talking to her first, then it's going to lead to problems later on in his career and later on in his life.
This feels youthful. Like even if because there's already about half the league on him is like, what if another
But they do that about every black quarterback.
Oh, that's true. That's true for the most part.
No, they don't.
Oh my goodness.
No, they don't. They
say every black quarterback can't do this, can't do that. He should be a receiver. He should.
Nah, Deshaun Watson, Jameis Winston.
Right, but Deshaun Watson should have been drafted number 1, Jason Whitlock. That's not a good example. Now, yes, Jameis Winston and Cam Newton, they did go number 1. So those are points in your favor. But to Steven Jackson, yes, they do tend to try to worry about various components to black quarterbacks that they really shouldn't. Look at this quarterback, Josh Allen, who happens to be Caucasian, I believe out of Wyoming. For all intents and purposes, this guy has no accuracy whatsoever. He completed less than 60% of his passes in college, but they're considering taking him number 1. Why is that? Lamar Jackson won a Heisman Trophy last year, and he's never shown that he has trouble throwing the ball down the field. He may not even go in the first round.
There's a lot of guys.
If her credibility
Said the same thing about Mike Vick.
right, if all the things that she
Yeah, but Mike Vick was a very highly touted prospect. This brother Lamar Jackson, for whatever reason, is not as highly touted, but supposedly he may be drafted by New England. So we'll see. Tom Brady's already signed off on it, of course, because he knows that most likely Lamar Jackson will not be a threat to take his job like Jimmy G was.
she knows if they went into this together, I get it what you're saying, right? All you want to do is be informed. I get it.
Absolutely.
But if you have the same ability to go read the exact same books, to go study exactly the way the contract negotiations go what?
But Tom Tomlin's got 25, 35 years of experience at it.
Yeah, but you know, Whitlock, you have to start somewhere. And this is why I say, once again, I want to use this conversation because these various factions were making good points, but they also had their weak points. And I agree with Ray Lewis. If that person can learn it, I can learn it. And so many black people do not, or so-called black people do not have that mentality. Our people put their trust in someone of another race because tacitly, they believe that that other person's brain functions at a higher level than their own brain. And you have the ability to learn about the monetary system, learn about finance just like anybody else, so that you can commandeer your own estate. That's what Ray Lewis is talking about.
That he trained for it for,
You're calling out the top of tops. Think about how
He's
many.
Lamar Jackson.
I graduated high school, no college degree. I negotiated my own extension while I had while I was on a 2-year deal. 3 years, $30 million, my own extension with
Did
no
your mom
agent.
do it or did you
But
do
what
it?
I'm saying is anybody can learn it.
Exactly. I agree with you, sir. Let's stop trying to put this air of mysticism around negotiations and around education. So-called black people have been trained so long to just exalt themselves for their physical aspect as opposed to their mental aspect that it's hard for our people to get over that hurdle of I can learn this, I can do this, I can compete with anyone mentally. And you see it all over the internet. A lot of times I'll see it in different videos in the comment section. The Caucasian may say, well, yes, blacks dominate physically, but we dominate mentally and things of that nature. All that is nonsense. It's all about how you as a so-called black man view yourself. Don't let anybody else tell you what you can't learn.
It don't have to be somebody that's already doing it. Anybody can pick it up. We can comprehend.
Sooner or later,
Absolutely.
you got to start counting your own money.
Absolutely.
That's the narrative. If nothing he did with his mama,
If I can do it, his
sooner
mama.
or later you got to start counting your own money. So I like it. I'm
Who
around.
negotiates yours?
And his last name Jackson. I'm rolling.
You got a big agent?
I have representation.
Okay.
So does Ray. So does Steven.
No, I don't. I represent myself.
Really?
Archer's right there.
I can't wait.
You might as well represent yourself. Once your name gets notable enough, you don't need to pay somebody else.
Wait,
I like Mr. Jackson.
I'm gonna take you to the cleaners then. Coming up.
But anyway, once again, very good conversation. As I stated, all four factions, they made very good points. There were also little minute flaws in everyone's stances or views, but I thought that the overall tone of this conversation was by far the best that I'd seen on this topic. But once again, brothers, you can't let anyone tell you what you can't learn and what you can't do. You have to learn to love your own brain. But anyway, peace.